let it go. 52 times a year, the week is done and over with before you know.
Hello, good evening and welcome. I am David Frost and this is That Was the Week That Was. This is the third series and the first since 1963 when we were cancelled by the BBC and the then Tory government of Harold Macmillan. At the start of the week, Marylebone Cricket Club backed Stephen Fry over accusations he told racist and misogynistic jokes at one of their events. Fry's jokes, if that's what they can be called, started with this one. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, but there are no lady members present. I suppose they are off shagging. Ha ha ha. The term Allah Akbar, when used today, is usually followed by a loud bang. Old Fry is showing off his low IQ again, Britain's new Bernard Manning. Down in Cornwall, a huge A30 bridge was craned in so quickly the road reopened early. The bridge weighs the equivalent of 23 double-decker buses or 887,000 Cornish pasties. No wonder the bridge is putting on weight. We learned this week that there are real-life zombies, how rare cases of people coming back to life actually happen. Which reminds us, Boris keeps coming back to life, doesn't he? Which, of course, makes him a zombie. The Daily Mail reported this week that an Albanian teenage migrant tried to sneak into Britain from France inside a child's coffin. The teenager had some distinguishing marks, 2 sharp teeth and a black gape. Whilst once more in Cornwall, we heard a Cornish town's choral call for their own Doc Martin echoed right round the world with 80 million people watching their music video appeal. The song has gone straight to the top of the medical charts. We should remind the people of Lostwithiel, Martin Clunes isn't a real doctor, but then the people of Lostwithiel aren't a real choir. Vladimir Putin was silenced. His great historic speech suffered a mysterious blackout across Russia as the state TV channels went down after a huge hack. Although nothing could be seen or heard, when the Russian people were asked, 90% said the broadcast was wonderful and they believed every word that Putin had said. This week, a Derbyshire couple and a car wash boss were prosecuted for smuggling Iraqi immigrants inside sofas. All the immigrants agreed they had enjoyed the experience and had been made to feel part of the furniture. And now some European news. Why the Swiss love their iconic alpine candy, Ricola. Ricola is a blend of 13 herbs, lady's mantle, elder, marshmallow, peppermint, thyme, sage, cowslip, horehound, burnet, speedwell, mallow and yellow. It may taste bloody lousy, but you'll never be constipated again. The Metro warned us about a potato-shaped asteroid 1,100,000 miles from Earth. However, after orbiting the Sun, it started to look more like a roast potato asteroid. The Express wrote this week, like a pound shop Hitler, Putin has just prepared the Russians for a bloodbath, in which case Putin's scented candles are available at Poundland, ideal for your next bloodbath. While the Telegraph wails, we just don't have the money to send jets to Ukraine. So that's no jets, no money and no courage. Whilst also in the Express, we were told we could go to the edge of space in a balloon under a startup's cut price offer to tourists. What the startup doesn't tell you is that it is funded by the US Air Force and the balloons will be used for target practice. Also this week, Cambridge University students voted for a vegan-only menu. So, university is said to be the best days of your life. So now your 3 years at Cambridge will suddenly feel like 50. The Times fashion correspondent noted that PM's wife, Akshata Murthy, was wearing £570 slippers for the school run. The slippers had been fleeced, A bit like we all feel after Mrs. Murty's husband has been running the country for 4 months. This week, archaeologists unearthed evidence of brain surgery from the 15th century. We ask ourselves, how on earth do these people manage to jump the NHS waiting list? Actually, we have learned they had only just managed to get on it. Also in the papers, we read about a couple from Stratford-on-Avon gobsmacked after finding a King Charles letter to his ill granny hidden in the loft. Proof at last that King Charles was actually William Shakespeare. And now an amazing fact. Robots will do 39% of domestic chores by 2033, said experts. However, snowflakes say robots shouldn't have to do housework and should be treated with unconditional respect. Also in the news, the new Tory Vice Chairman Lee Anderson and Brexit activist Steve Bray are to fight a boxing match. We can imagine that Steve Bray will have Lee Anderson pinned on the ropes before throwing him over a lamppost and then hanging. There is reportedly a national shortage of fruit and vegetables in the UK because of Brexit. And we read this week about a mum barred from buying 100 cucumbers in Lidl. Brits responded by doing what they are good at, and there were queues for the cumbers. Complaints about the shortages were numerous, and people said they had felt encumbered. Friday, we heard about a Russian MP who could be punished this week for hanging noodles on his ears during a Putin speech. Yes, it's obvious that China is supporting Russia. Supplies of chow mein, pork balls to hang from the ears have been sent by Beijing. This week, a visit to the supermarket would have shown shelves that were empty of fruit and vegetables. Minister Therese Coffey suggested work more hours if you can't afford food, whilst eating turnips could be used to combat tomato shortage. Yes, indeed, it's true that Blackadder is coming back. And yes, it's Mrs. Baldrick who is in charge. Whilst the Metro asked, is the 3-to-2 method really the new 5 a day for fruit and veg? We asked an expert, Therese Coffey, and she suggested 5 turnips a day. We also read in the Irish papers about a Goldilocks burglar who cooked himself a meal before falling asleep in an OAP's bed whilst avoiding jail. Apparently he didn't have porridge, although he's been given some now. Wonders will never cease. Scientists have discovered that the Earth has 2 cores. All of us at TWTWTW are of one mind, and we say encore. Although we say boo to the scientists who missed something that big in the first place. Our new AI friend ChatGPT has generated books that are flooding Amazon, and experts warn that they could drown out books written by humans. So in the future, look out for books written by such as Robot Louis Stevenson and Robot Browning. As Remainers, we do find Europeans funny. Swiss wit, wrote the local newspaper. Jokes that prove the Swiss are actually funny. 2 members of the Swiss army got into a knife fight, then a corkscrew fight, then a tweezer fight, then a bottle opener fight, and finished off attacking one another with nail file. The Evening Standard observed that Londoners did £7.3 billion worth of unpaid overtime work last year, whilst Tory MPs were paid for 10 billion hours of overtime which they had claimed but which they didn't do. The Telegraph said, Russia-Ukraine war latest. King Charles says heartening that Britain is supporting Ukraine, but at the same time, bloody annoying that Britain is supporting Harry and Meghan. The Mirror reported that Lewis Capaldi fans took over during his Tourette's flare-up in a heartwarming moment on stage. The whole thing was filmed and will appear on TikTok. The ever-active Camilla forced a U-turn in the Roald Dahl censorship row. Camilla is a far-right libertarian activist, culture war warrior. The monarchy have been told not to become involved in politics. The last time it happened, King Charles lost his head, so it's not all bad news. Now some good news. Dementia is more preventable than we think. Experts explain how to protect yourself. As you can see in the picture, the first sign of dementia is pounding along the roads, clutching ski poles, thinking it's snowing when it isn't. We read in the Daily Star about a woman who tried to saw off her boyfriend's head with a bread knife. However, he miraculously survived. Fortunately, he can still use his loaf, and described her failure to cut off his head as the best thing since sliced bread. Camilla was again in the news this week, so the woman who contributed to the death of Princess Diana by encouraging King Charles to be unfaithful is now boasting about using the same dress design. Bruce Oldfield. I'm sure if he'd been alive today, Roald Dahl would have written a book about her, entitled Camilla Murders Matilda. Whilst on Sunday, in our troubled economy, the Bank of England has just been printing more for which we are responsible. Taxpayers are on the hook for up to £200 billion over this Bank of England money printing exercise. So it's the Bank of England, the mint with a hole. Or the Bank of England, the mint in a hole. Once again, we read about Camilla, who is getting anointed with holy oil 16 years after the rightful Queen Diana was killed, a death to which Camilla contributed. And now we have a new royal family. Diana didn't live long enough to get anointed with holy oil, but she did get her head stuck through a car windscreen. Talking about car windscreen, bike crash presenter Dan Walker revealed this week he dreamt he was transporting baguettes, croissants and jam in France when he was knocked out in the smash, but managed to phone the boss to insist, "I'm not dead." When the boss of Channel 5 got his French breakfast finally delivered, it appeared to be covered in blood and looked like it was run over by a car. Now over to our fashion correspondent. Amanda Holden was pulled over and forced to get out of a car after a run-in with the police. Amanda returned to the car as she explained it was a random check. A random check, a bit like what Alan Carr was wearing then. The papers have been filled with the problems children are experiencing with going to the toilet and having to ask permission. This week we heard about a private health tycoon who claimed £18,000 of expenses for attending the House of Lords, despite not speaking or casting a single vote. The peer has been given a period pass in case he wants to use the toilet. So finally this week, we read about a grandpa, 86, who won sex with 2 prostitutes in a radio contest, but sadly died hours before the romp. That's like running 500 consecutive marathons before collapsing on the finishing line. Well, this has been David Frost on That Was the Week That Was. So goodbye, good evening, and see you next week.
That was the week that was. It's over, let it go. 52 times a year. The week is done and over with before you know.